I thought I knew what love felt like, but nothing prepared me for falling for a man who could buy anything, except truth, time, or me. I was his secret piece in a world full of noise, and he was my heartbreak in a suit. If you've ever loved someone who seemed untouchable, if you've ever given your soul to someone who could never give you their full truth, this story is for you. Hit like if you've loved and lost. Subscribe if you're healing. Let's talk. Before him, my life was simple but full. The kind of full that doesn't make headlines, but fills your heart in the quietest, most sacred ways. I worked a steady job at a community center, a space where laughter from the kids and hard-earned smiles from their mamas made every long day feel worth it. I lived in a modest apartment, the kind where the walls hold stories and memories, not luxury. I knew my neighbors by name, ran into old teachers at the grocery store, and Sunday dinners with my family were never up for negotiation. We weren't wealthy, but we were rich in ways money couldn't touch. My mama raised me with the kind of love that didn't need to be said out loud every day, but was always felt. My dad, when he was around, taught me about dignity, the kind you carry even when life tries to strip it from you. I grew up on hand-me-downs, loud kitchen arguments, and the smell of shea butter and cornbread, and still I never felt I lacked anything. I had dreams, of course, but they weren't dripping in gold or wrapped in diamonds. I wanted peace. I wanted a partner who'd hold my hand when things got hard, not just show up when it was easy. I wasn't waiting for a man to come save me. I wasn't lonely. I wasn't desperate. I had friends who filled me up, a journal that caught my late-night tears, and a faith that kept me standing. So no, I didn't need anyone, but life has a way of slipping in surprises when you least expect them. And love, well, love doesn't always knock politely. Sometimes it crashes into you wearing expensive cologne and a complicated smile. I wasn't trying to be seen that day. I'd just come from work, hair in a puff, minimal makeup, wearing the kind of outfit you throw on when comfort is your only priority. I was at a small local gallery, one of those places tucked between a bakery and a laundromat. Quiet, soulful, untouched by the city's noise. I liked places like that. They reminded me of myself, not flashy but full of meaning if you looked closely enough. He was already inside when I walked in. I noticed him immediately, not because he was loud or drawing attention, but because he wasn't. He was just there, still, watching a painting like it was speaking to him. He didn't look like the kind of man who belonged in places like that. There was something too polished about him, too composed, but his eyes were soft in a way I didn't expect. Curious, alive. We ended up next to the same canvas. He asked me what I saw in it, like that wasn't the most cliché thing to say. I almost rolled my eyes, but the way he asked, it wasn't performative, it was real. He listened when I spoke, like he'd been waiting to hear my version of the world. We talked for 10 minutes that felt like 2 hours. Then he smiled, said I was different, and left without asking for my number. Just like that. I didn't think much of it at the time. Just a strange moment with a stranger. I went home and didn't even tell anyone. But a week later, I got flowers at work, no note, then another, and then a message. He'd found me somehow. Most people would be creeped out, but not me. Not then. I felt chosen. He didn't come on strong, not in the way most men with power do. There were no grand entrances, no flashy gestures to prove anything. Instead, he moved like water, calm, deliberate, finding his way into my life in slow, careful ripples. One day it was a message, the next, a phone call that stretched into the night. He made space for me without rushing me into his world, and that made it easier to let my guard down. I remember thinking, why me? Not in a self-deprecating way, but genuinely. He was clearly used to a different kind of life, private jets, 5-star restaurants, conversations that happened behind tinted glass. I was from the side of town where folks borrowed sugar from neighbors and sat on porches when the AC broke. But he never made me feel small. In fact, he made me feel seen. Not for what I could offer, not for what I wore or who I knew, but for who I was when no one was watching. Still, I had questions. There was always a little space between us that didn't close, no matter how much time we spent talking. He'd change subjects quickly when I got too personal. He said he valued privacy, but it often felt like secrecy. My friends were skeptical. They warned me, gently but firmly. He lives in a different world. Be careful. And I nodded, pretending to listen while already too deep to walk away. He never asked for much, just my time, my silence, my trust. And I gave it, piece by piece. Not because I was naive, but because it felt like maybe, just maybe, I'd found something rare. The kind of love that doesn't need to be loud to be real. I was wrong, but I didn't know that yet. Being with him felt like stepping into a different universe. The kind where everything was quiet, sleek, curated. Private chefs, private drivers, private moments. It was like living in a movie with no audience. He never took me to crowded places, never introduced me to friends. It was always us, in beautiful, lonely corners of the world where no one could see. I told myself it was romantic, that he was protecting what we had from the chaos outside. But deep down, I felt the silent stretching. We'd take weekend trips where I didn't have to lift a finger. Maldives, Paris, Napa, always first class, always last minute. He had the kind of power that made time bend, like everything would wait for him. And I won't lie, I enjoyed some of it. Who wouldn't? But even with all the champagne and silk sheets, I started to feel something missing. Not in the world around me, but in the space between us. I didn't meet his family. He never brought me to his home, only his penthouse suite in the city. His phone never rang when we were together. At first, I thought that was a good thing. No distractions. But then I started wondering, who was calling when I wasn't there? I posted a picture once, just our hands, nothing obvious. He called me an hour later, not angry, just disappointed. People will talk, he said. They won't understand. I asked him what there was to understand. He said, "You're my peace. Don't let the world ruin that." And I believed him. I held on tighter, but I felt it, the invisibility, the quiet erasure. I was the woman he wanted in the shadows. And no matter how beautiful the bubble was, I couldn't ignore the walls around it forever. There's a point in every love story where something shifts. For me, it wasn't a dramatic moment. It was the quiet weight of small things piling up. The unanswered questions. The way he'd disappear for days, with vague excuses and surface-level apologies. The way my gut twisted when his stories didn't quite add up, but I smiled anyway, wanting to believe the best in him. That's what love does sometimes. It makes you lie to yourself better than anyone else ever could. He told me he was busy, always busy, deals, flights, meetings. "I'll make it up to you," he'd say, and he always did, at least on the surface. A last-minute flight, a room full of roses, a diamond bracelet that glimmered like a promise he'd never actually made. But gifts don't fix distance. They just dress it up. I started asking more questions, gently at first. "When can I meet your friends? Why haven't I seen your place?" His responses were smooth, always carefully worded. They wouldn't get us. "I just want to protect what we have." The words sounded sweet but started tasting sour in my mouth. My soul felt like it was being fed candy while starving for real food. Then came the lie I couldn't unhear. A woman called while he was in the shower, her voice casual, like she belonged. When I asked him, he said she was a business partner. The calm in his voice rattled me more than if he'd shouted. I felt crazy for even asking, and that's when I knew he wasn't just hiding me from the world. He was hiding the world from me. My intuition was screaming, but my heart still whispered, maybe he'll change. And I hate how long I listened to the whisper. There's a kind of silence that doesn't mean peace. It means distance. And I started feeling that silence sitting between us, even when we were in the same room. I remember the night it all cracked open. We were in a hotel suite in Miami, one of those places with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view that makes you feel like you're floating. But I felt like I was sinking. He'd been distracted all evening, glued to his phone, answering calls in the hallway, pacing like something was chasing him. I asked him what was going on. He brushed me off like a child asking too many questions. That was the first time I raised my voice. I told him I was tired of being his secret, tired of pretending I didn't notice how carefully he kept me at arm's length. He didn't argue. He just looked at me, almost bored, and said, "You knew what this was." That sentence broke something in me. Because no, I didn't. I thought we were building something real, something rare. But to him, I was an escape, nothing more. I didn't cry right away. I went quiet. I packed my things slowly, methodically, like if I moved calmly enough, I could keep my heart from falling apart. He didn't stop me. He didn't chase me. He didn't even stand up. Just watched me leave like I was a moment that had passed. In the elevator, I finally cried. Not because I'd lost him, but because I'd lost myself a little in trying to hold on. I realized then that love without honesty is just a performance. And I was done being the girl in the wings, waiting for her name to be called. I deserved more, even if it meant walking alone. Leaving him wasn't the hard part. Staying gone was. Because heartbreak isn't just about missing someone. It's about unlearning everything you built your days around. I had to relearn silence, not the kind that came with being ignored, but the kind that meant peace. I had to remind myself that love shouldn't feel like a secret or a strategy. Love should breathe. For weeks I felt hollow, like I had escaped a beautiful prison, but didn't know what to do with the freedom. I stopped answering texts, didn't return calls. I cut off our last thread of connection because I knew if he reached out, I'd fall back into his rhythm. And I couldn't afford to do that again. Not if I wanted to find myself in full color again. Therapy helped. Long walks with no destination helped. Crying in the shower, dancing to old R&B songs in my kitchen, writing letters I never sent. Those things helped. I let myself feel it all without rushing the healing. That was new for me. I'd always been the strong one. But this time, I didn't want to be strong. I just wanted to be real. And somewhere in the middle of that mess, I started to remember who I was before he showed up. The woman who never needed luxury to feel valuable. The woman who knew her worth before someone else tried to define it. I started showing up for myself the way I used to show up for him. I stopped checking for his name in the news. Stopped wondering if he missed me. Because whether he did or didn't, it didn't change the truth. I had loved him with everything I had, and still chose to walk away. And that kind of choice, that's power, that's healing, that's freedom. Now, when I think about him, I don't feel anger. I don't feel longing either. I just feel clarity, like waking up after a long dream and realizing you were never really sleeping, just avoiding the light. Loving him showed me all the places I was still learning to love myself. It taught me that presence is more powerful than any gift, and truth is more valuable than any title. I look at myself in the mirror now, and I see someone whole. Not because of what I've survived, but because of what I chose to let go of. I stopped chasing people who only wanted to rent space in my life, but never invest in it. I stopped romanticizing red flags just because they came wrapped in charm and charisma. And most importantly, I stopped making excuses for love that couldn't show up fully. I still believe in love, deeply. But I believe in a different kind of love now. The kind that doesn't hide you. The kind that doesn't make you feel like you have to earn your place. I believe in the love that holds your hand in public and listens to your silence in private. The kind of love that honors your name when you're not in the room. That's what I'm open to. That's what I'm saving my heart for. I won't lie and say I'm healed all the way. Healing isn't a straight line. It curves, dips, and sometimes circles back. But I'm grounded now, rooted. I don't need anyone to complete me. I just want someone who sees me as already complete. Because the truth is, he may have owned everything the world could offer, but I own something far more precious now, myself, and no one can ever take that away again. If you've ever felt invisible in love, you're not alone. Share your story in the comments. Remember, you are not hard to love, you just need someone who sees you in full light. Like, subscribe, and take your power back.